Let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to break down one of the most high-stakes, nerve-wracking timelines in the modern digital world. We're looking at the exact anatomy of a cyber attack, specifically focusing on a ticking clock scenario, those critical first 24 hours. We constantly hear about the catastrophic aftermath of a hack, right? The millions of dollars lost, the crippled business operations, but we rarely get a step-by-step look at how those dominoes actually fall in real time. So today, we're tracking the timeline and phases of an attack, from the very first silent intrusion all the way through to the frantic emergency response. Picture this. You arrive at work on a totally normal Monday morning. The coffee is brewing, employees are logging in, customers are placing their orders. From the outside looking in, everything seems perfectly fine. But a silent breach is already hidden deep inside the company's network. An attacker has gained access. And here's the scary part. There are no alarms sounding. There's no flashing red screen on anyone's monitor. Just an invisible compromise that has already jeopardized the entire organization. So you have to ask, what actually happens during those critical first 24 hours? Well, we're going to put the clock at zero and track the exact phases from that initial breach through scouting, lateral movement, data theft, the visible attack, and finally, the emergency response. All right, let's start the clock. Phase 1, hour 0, the silent initial breach. Now, for all the sophisticated tech out there, the actual break-in methods are surprisingly mundane. Sometimes it's a phishing email that an employee just casually clicked on. Very often, it's a stolen password bought on the dark web for literally pennies, or it's an unpatched software vulnerability that was just left exposed to the open internet. Attackers use these simple entry points to slip right through the front door, making absolutely no noise once they're inside. Once they're in, they immediately execute something highly technical and absolutely critical for their success, which is persistence. Basically, this ensures attackers can return to the network even if their initial access point gets discovered. They're planting backdoors. And at this specific point in time, the organization usually has absolutely no idea they've already been compromised. The attacker's in, and they've made sure they can stay in. Moving on to phase 2, hours 1 through 4. Scouting and expanding control. Rather than attacking immediately and making a mess, cybercriminals actually start gathering intelligence. It's methodical. They identify the critical servers. They deliberately locate the backup systems. They map out the network topology to see exactly how everything connects. They start searching for highly privileged admin accounts, and they begin hunting for valuable data, customer records, financial data, IP. They are taking their time to completely understand the environment before making their next move. Honestly, think of it like a burglar walking through a massive building after secretly obtaining the master key. They aren't smashing display cases yet, right? They're just quietly walking the halls, figuring out exactly where the security cameras are, and locating the safe. Which brings us to phase 3, hours 4 through 8. Privilege escalation and lateral movement. Look, to do maximum damage, attackers need what we call privilege escalation. They have to upgrade their basic access to administrator levels. Their ultimate goal is to take control of the entire organization, not just that one random computer they initially breached. Because an isolated computer doesn't pay a massive ransom, right? An entire crippled enterprise does. They're shifting from a single entry point to enterprise-wide domination. So how do they actually achieve that domination? Well, it's a process. First, they steal higher-level credentials. Next, they use those credentials to move laterally from one computer to another. Third, they systematically compromise additional systems across entirely different departments. And fourth, and this is definitely the most dangerous part, they actively disable the organization's security tools whenever possible. They are literally turning off the alarm systems from the inside. Now the pace really picks up. Phase 4, hours 8 through 16, the data heist. Armed with their newly elevated access, they launch a massive data collection operation. We're talking customer databases, employee records, financial documents, trade secrets, cloud storage, internal emails. Think about your own company's shared drives right now. It's a rapid, systematic theft of everything that makes the business function and everything that needs to be kept private. And keep in mind, many modern cybercriminal groups prioritize stealing this mountain of information before they ever even think about launching a ransomware payload. But why steal all that data in the first place? It's about ultimate leverage. Modern threat actors use a dual threat strategy. Pressure tactic 1 is your traditional ransomware move. Encrypt the system so the business comes to a halt. But pressure tactic 2 is the real ace up their sleeve. They threaten to publish all that stolen, highly sensitive data to the public internet if the ransom is refused. This double extortion leaves the victim organization feeling completely boxed in. Okay, Phase 5, hours 16 to 20. The visible attack begins. This is the moment the stark reality hits the company all at once. The visible damage starts. Suddenly, core systems become completely unavailable. Files across the entire network begin encrypting in real time. Employees are suddenly losing access to critical applications, getting locked out of their own workstations. And out in the real world, customers can't access online services. The entire business comes to a screeching, chaotic halt. And back in the IT department, it is absolute panic. The security teams, who had seen zero warnings for the last 16 hours, are suddenly bombarded with thousands of alerts within mere minutes. What was once a completely invisible, stealthy attack is now generating overwhelming noise. It's a full-scale crisis, and the defenders are suddenly playing a massive game of catch-up. Which leads us to the final window, Phase 6, hours 20 to 24, emergency incident response. At this point, the incident response team has to execute a highly structured emergency procedure amidst the chaos. Step 1, they frantically isolate the compromised systems. Step 2, network connections are heavily restricted to stop the bleeding. Step 3, executives are urgently notified of the crisis. Step 4, forensic investigators begin the grueling work of figuring out exactly how the attackers originally got in. And finally, Step 5, legal teams assess the regulatory reporting obligations while communications teams scramble to prepare statements for employees, customers, and the public. You really have to notice the sheer weight of this ticking clock. Every single minute matters. The technical containment directly ties to real-world business consequences. The longer the attackers remain inside that network, the greater the potential financial and reputational damage. Organizations that fail to contain this quickly, they can spend months recovering, bleeding millions of dollars, and honestly, worst of all, losing the hard-earned trust of their customers. As we wrap up this timeline, I think it's vital we address a major misconception here. The Hollywood myth is that cyber attacks happen in seconds, right? A hacker types furiously on a keyboard in a dark hoodie and boom, the mainframe is breached. But the reality is that these are carefully planned operations that methodically unfold over hours, days, or even weeks. Let's just bring this full circle and look at the entire 24-hour progression we just walked through. Hour 0, the silent initial breach. Hours 1 through 8, the quiet recon and lateral expansion. Hours 8 through 16, the massive data collection. Hours 16 through 20, the sudden, visible attack. And hours 20 through 24, the frantic incident response. The first 24 hours are truly the most critical window in any cyber incident. Ultimately, cybersecurity isn't just about building taller walls. It's about detecting those attacks quickly during those silent first hours. It's about responding effectively when the alarm bells finally do ring, and ultimately, we're recovering stronger than before. The organizations that detect the threat early in the timeline are the ones that actually successfully contain the damage. So I'll leave you with this. If the 24-hour countdown started right now in your organization, are you ready to detect the invisible breach before the visible damage begins? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes open for those silent threats.